Good morning. It's time for your Monday Firestarter. I'm Pastor David Warren, and I wonder if you'll turn with me just for a couple minutes to the book of Hosea. Hosea chapter 11. And this is just a piggyback off of what we talked about in worship yesterday. And in Hosea chapter 11, I'm going to just start reading in verse 1, and just follow along with me. It says, "When Israel was a child, I loved him. And out of Egypt I called my son." Now, so right from the beginning there, we see that when did God start loving Israel? Was it after Israel got their act together? No, it was even before they knew how to walk. It was while Israel was a child that God loved them. And then out of Egypt he called his son. So a son that's a little bit older, especially if you understand Hebrew culture, that you weren't really even a person until you were of age. And so we see that God loved Israel even when they were a baby, an infant, when they were incapable of doing anything. But then God also loved Israel when they were enslaved in Egypt, enslaved in sin. And in verse 2, it says, "The more they were called, the more they went away." So they were rebellious. They kept sacrificing to the Baals and burning offering to idols, so they were idolatrous. Yet it was I who taught Ephraim to walk. Ephraim here is analogous with Israel, his chosen people. "I took them up by their arms, but they didn't know that I healed them. I led them with cords of kindness, with the bands of love. And I became to them as one who eases the yoke on their jaws. And I bent down to them and I fed them." And so we have this hope in just the first 4 verses of Hosea chapter 11 that, to talk about what we talked about yesterday in worship about certainty and uncertainty, that the only sure thing we've ever had is God. We're the ones that started putting our hope and our security in other things, in what I call lesser gods. And so we're the ones to blame for our anxiety. We're the ones to blame for our fear. We often look up to heaven and say, "Where are you? Why are you allowing this to happen?" But we're the ones that put our hope and our trust in other things. And yet he has been with us the whole time. He has promised that he would never leave us, that he would never forsake us. And one of the things that my wife and I often remind each other of, and I want to remind you of this, is when we come into times of trouble, when we come into what we call those uncertain times, we always remind each other, well, he's been there for us before. He's always been with us. Why would he leave now? And so we know that we can hope in him. And that's your fire starter for this Monday. Think on those things this week. Meditate on the fact that your God is with you. He always has been with you, and he always will be with you. God bless.